Have you ever felt like your own children are starting to ignore you, or worse, that they no longer respect you? You raised them with love and care and sacrificed so much for their well-being, and now, as you get older, you're left wondering where you went wrong. It hurts, doesn't it? But before you let the pain consume you, what if I told you there's a better way to restore peace, dignity, and even respect without creating conflict? In this video, I'm going to share with you 8 powerful actions that can help you rebuild your relationships with your children, find your sense of purpose again, and regain the respect you deserve. These steps aren't just theories. They're proven strategies used by many parents who have successfully mended their broken relationships. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools you need to handle these emotional challenges with confidence. Whether it's learning how to communicate your feelings wisely, setting healthy boundaries, or even regaining your financial independence. You'll discover how small shifts in your actions and mindset can lead to better connections with your children and a stronger sense of self-worth. So, if you're ready to stop feeling ignored and start taking back control of your emotional well-being, stay tuned and watch until the end. You don't want to miss the powerful lessons waiting for you. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Insight number 1. Don't react in anger. Pause and reflect. When we're hurt, especially by the very people we've nurtured, loved, and sacrificed for, the pain can be unbearable. It digs deep into our hearts, leaving a wound that feels like it will never heal. It's all too easy to feel betrayed, to let anger take hold, and to lash out in frustration. How could they treat us this way? How could they forget all the love and effort we poured into raising them? These emotions can quickly spiral, leading us to say things we might regret, things that would only hurt the relationship further. But here's the truth. Reacting in anger only pushes our children further away and deepens the chasm of hurt. Let me share a story with you, one that struck me on a personal level. It's about Mr. Tanaka, a retired school teacher in his 70s, whose heart had been aching for years. His children, now grown, rarely visited, and when they did, the silence between them was deafening. It was as though he no longer mattered in their busy lives. One day, after yet another phone call went unanswered, Mr. Tanaka's frustration reached its peak. He could feel the fire building inside him, the overwhelming desire to call his son and scream, "Do you even care about me anymore? After everything I did for you, this is how you treat me." The pain was raw, and the anger seemed justified, but he didn't act on it. Instead, he did something that changed everything. He paused. He chose to step outside and take a walk in the park. As he walked, the weight of his emotions began to lift. His mind was flooded with memories. Memories of a life spent in service to his family, the years he dedicated to shaping young minds as a teacher, and the moments when his children were little, and the world felt full of love and promise. In that peaceful, quiet space, something remarkable happened. Mr. Tanaka realized his worth was not tied to the neglect he felt from his children. His value was not defined by whether or not they called or visited. His value was in the life he had lived, the good he had done, the people he had helped, and the love he had given. His dignity, he realized, could never be stripped away by their silence. I can't help but think about how many of us, in moments of hurt and frustration, fail to see this truth. How often do we let our emotions, anger, resentment, and pain, blind us to our strength? How often do we let our dignity slip away because we allow the actions of others to define how we feel about ourselves? But here's what I've learned. Emotional reactions, especially anger, rarely lead to positive results. When we lash out, we only add fuel to the fire. We don't gain respect, we lose it. We don't restore harmony, we create further distance. Instead, take a moment to breathe. Step back. Reflect on the life you've lived, on all the good you've done, and on the love you've shared. Remember your value. Remember that your dignity is something you carry inside of you. It's not dependent on anyone else's behavior. This is something I've come to believe with all my heart. Calm reflection will always bring clarity. Anger only clouds the truth. When you approach a situation with a clear mind and a strong sense of self-worth, you communicate from a place of strength, not weakness. And with time, that strength may even help rebuild what feels broken. Don't let anger be your guide. Let peace be your compass. The power of a calm mind will always lead you to a better place than the chaos of uncontrolled emotions ever will. So, next time you feel that sting of disrespect, that urge to lash out, pause. Reflect on your life and your values. You deserve that peace. You deserve to be seen, and you are seen. And in that stillness, you'll find the strength to restore not just your relationship but your sense of inner peace. Insight number 2. Rebuild your own life. Find a new purpose. One of the most liberating and transformative things you can do when you feel dismissed or neglected by your children is to turn your focus back to yourself. It can be so easy to get caught in the vortex of waiting, hoping, and yearning for their attention, validation, or love. But the truth is, your emotional well-being should never be dependent on the actions or recognition of others, especially not your children, no matter how much you love them. Rebuilding your life, cultivating a sense of self-worth, and finding a new purpose can be the most empowering gift you can give yourself. When you begin to live a life that is fulfilling and meaningful to you, something extraordinary happens. Your energy shifts. You become a magnet of vitality, joy, and confidence. And believe me, that transformation doesn't go unnoticed. Not by your friends, your neighbors, and certainly not by your children. They might not even realize what's happening, but they will feel it. A parent who exudes independence and joy is impossible to overlook. They are no longer the person waiting for the phone to ring. They are the person living their best life, filling their cup first, and suddenly, they become the ones that people, especially their children, want to be around. Take, for example, the story of Mrs. Elena, a widow in her late 60s. After the passing of her beloved husband, her children slowly began to visit less frequently. The phone calls she once cherished became shorter and eventually stopped altogether. The silence in her home was deafening. She found herself staring at the phone for hours, hoping, praying, for it to ring. Her heart sank each time the call didn't come, each day feeling longer than the last. It was a heavy, crushing weight on her chest. But one morning, something shifted deep within her, a quiet but powerful realization. She couldn't keep living this way. She couldn't wait for them to come back. She had to live for herself, for her happiness. And so, she made a decision, a bold one. She went to her cupboard, grabbed a small packet of seeds, and walked outside into the fresh air. It was a humble beginning, just planting a few flowers and ending with some vegetables. But as the days passed, that small hobby grew into something much bigger. Gardening became her sanctuary, her joy, her passion. She discovered a community of like-minded souls in a local gardening club, and through them, she found new friends, new connections, and new meaning. She wasn't just growing plants anymore. She was growing her heart, her confidence, and her place in the world. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Her energy shifted. She felt lighter, more vibrant, and deeply connected to the life around her. She was no longer sitting by the phone, hoping for a call. She was out there, living life on her terms. She shared her garden's bounty with her neighbors, laughed with her new friends, and found joy in every moment. And then, one day it happened. Out of the blue, her daughter called. The sound of her voice on the other end of the line made Elena's heart leap. "Mom," her daughter said, "I've been thinking about you a lot lately. You sound so different. So happy. What's your secret?" That simple question, that small moment, opened the door to a new chapter in their relationship. The calls became longer. The visits started again. The conversations deepened. Elena's newfound sense of purpose had reignited her children's admiration and respect for her. They no longer saw her as a lonely waiting figure. They saw her as a dynamic, fulfilled woman living a rich, meaningful life. The lesson here is profound, and it's one that I hope resonates deeply. A fulfilled parent is incredibly difficult to ignore. When your life has a purpose, when you are engaged in something that fills your heart with joy, people are naturally drawn to you. Your children, your friends, and even acquaintances will begin to take notice. Instead of sitting and waiting for others to show up in your life, make a conscious decision to invest in yourself. Pursue hobbies that spark joy, join groups where you feel supported, or volunteer to give back to your community. The happiness you cultivate within yourself will not only bring you peace, but it might just draw your children back into your life in a way that's deeper, richer, and more meaningful than before. In the end, you are the one in control of your happiness. No one can take that from you. Your life is yours to design, to live fully and vibrantly. When you embrace that, you'll find that the love and attention you've been longing for might just start flowing in from unexpected places, including from the very children who once overlooked you. Insight number 3. Communicate your feelings wisely. When we're faced with the painful reality of our children seeming distant or, worse, disrespectful, the instinct is to confront them. The frustration wells up inside, and we may feel an overwhelming urge to say things like, "Why don't you ever call me? Don't you care about me anymore?" It's almost as if the words are ready to burst out of us, fueled by hurt and disappointment. But let me tell you, in those moments, it's crucial to remember that harsh words often create a wall between us and the ones we love. They provoke defensiveness, make the other person retreat, and before you know it, the distance between you grows even wider. But here's the thing, there's a better way. A way that invites connection instead of conflict, understanding instead of anger. The truth is, when we speak from a place of love, when we share our emotions with vulnerability and gentleness, the response we receive is far more likely to be one of warmth, empathy, and reconciliation. It's about choosing kindness over frustration, a heartfelt approach over blame, and it can work wonders in mending those emotional gaps. Let me share the story of Mr. Peterson, a retired carpenter whose heart ached every day as he waited for his son, James, to call. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, with no word from his son. It felt like an eternity of silence. Every time Mr. Peterson sat by the window, his heart would skip a beat, hoping to see his son's familiar car pulling into the driveway. It never came. The pain of this absence weighed heavily on him, and at times, he thought about calling James, demanding an explanation. Why hasn't he called me? Does he even care anymore? The thoughts were maddening. But instead of giving in to the anger and frustration, Mr. Peterson made a conscious decision to choose a different approach. He sat down at his kitchen table, and with trembling hands, he wrote a letter to his son. It was a letter filled with honesty but without blame. He poured his heart into it, saying, "James, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I miss our conversations. I miss hearing about your life. I just want you to know that I'm always here, and I'm proud of you, no matter what." He didn't demand an explanation or guilt-trip his son. He simply expressed his feelings, wrapped in love and sincerity. When James received the letter, it struck him deeply. He felt an overwhelming rush of emotion as he read his father's words. He had been so caught up in the busyness of life, work, family, obligations, that he hadn't realized how much his father was missing him. At that moment, something shifted. James called his father, and they talked for hours. One letter, one heartfelt expression of love, had bridged the gap that had formed over time. That letter led to regular phone calls, weekend visits, and a rekindled bond that hadn't existed for years. This story is a powerful reminder that how we communicate matters. Our words can either tear down or build up, deepen the divide, or close the gap. When you're feeling neglected or hurt, instead of accusing your children or making them feel guilty, try sharing your emotions with kindness and vulnerability. Instead of saying, "You never call me," try something like, "I miss our time together," or "I've been thinking about you a lot lately." These simple shifts in language can make a world of difference. The key here is wisdom in communication. Choose your words carefully because the impact they have on the other person is immeasurable. Words can heal wounds, offer solace, and bring people back together. When we choose to speak from a place of love and understanding, we create an environment where true connection and reconnection can flourish. It's a practice that takes time, patience, and a lot of heart, but I promise you, it's worth it. So next time you're feeling the sting of silence or distance, remember to communicate with compassion, and you just might find that the doors to healing are wide open. Insight number 4. Set healthy boundaries. Respect is a two-way street. As much as you may desire your children to respect you, it's crucial to remember that respecting yourself is just as important. Too often, in the rush to care for others, we forget that self-respect is not something that just happens. It's something we actively cultivate. When we let disrespect linger or allow our personal needs to be ignored, it sends a loud message, one that says we're willing to accept behavior that undermines our well-being. This is a painful reality many of us face, but it's never too late to change. It's not about shutting people out. It's about preserving the peace and emotional clarity that you deserve. Setting healthy boundaries doesn't only protect your sanity, it teaches others how to treat you, which is a powerful act of self-love. Take the story of Mrs. Rosa, a retired nurse in her 70s who lived a life of quiet dedication to her family. Her son, Daniel, had always been a source of pride for her, until the demands started to overwhelm her. Over the years, Daniel became more and more reliant on his mother, but not in a way that reflected respect or gratitude. He rarely visited unless he needed something: money, help with his children, or simply someone to vent to about his life's frustrations. Mrs. Rosa, ever the devoted mother, would drop whatever she was doing, believing that by helping him, she'd earn his appreciation and love. She was driven by a belief that her sacrifices would somehow be seen, her heart hoping that her unwavering support would bring her son closer. But as time went on, Daniel's requests grew more demanding and unreasonable. He would show up uninvited, expecting her to babysit for hours without so much as a thank you. And yet, Mrs. Rosa, though weary, felt an obligation to keep giving because that's what mothers do, right? But deep inside, she was crumbling. The emotional toll was weighing heavy on her heart, and she knew that something had to change. It was after yet another last-minute request that Mrs. Rosa decided she could no longer go on like this. She realized that her heart, though full of love for her son, could no longer endure the neglect of her own needs. She knew that her well-being was just as important as her son's, and perhaps even more so. With a sense of quiet strength, she told Daniel, "I love you, but I'm not available today. I've made plans for myself." At first, Daniel was taken aback, even a little annoyed. How dare she stand up for herself? But Mrs. Rosa was resolute. She no longer allowed herself to be taken for granted. She started filling her days with things that nourished her soul. She joined a book club, something she had always wanted to do but never had the time for. She started attending yoga classes, feeling the physical and emotional relief of nurturing her own body. She reconnected with old friends, savoring the joy of companionship that wasn't based on obligation. As weeks passed, Daniel began to notice the shift in his mother. He realized that she was no longer the constant, selfless figure who would drop everything for him. She was strong, independent, and, most importantly, happy. Slowly, he started to recognize how selfish his behavior had been, how he had taken advantage of her kindness without ever offering appreciation in return. And something beautiful happened. He began to treat her with the respect she had always deserved. Mrs. Rosa's journey is a testament to the importance of setting boundaries. She didn't push her son away, she simply honored her own needs. By doing so, She reclaimed her dignity and restored the balance in their relationship. The simple truth is this: respect has to flow in both directions. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you must never allow your own emotional needs to be neglected in favor of others. Setting boundaries is not an act of rejection. It's an act of love, for yourself and for the people you care about. When you show others how to respect you, you are teaching them the most important lesson of all: that your peace, time, and emotional health matter. When you set that example, others will follow. And in doing so, you'll create deeper, more meaningful relationships built on mutual respect. Insight number 5. Lead by example. It's all too easy to expect respect from others, especially when we feel we deserve it. But the harsh reality is that respect isn't something that can simply be demanded. It has to be earned. And more often than not, we earn it through our actions. If you want your children, or anyone for that matter, to treat you with respect, it all begins with you. You must be the embodiment of the kind of respect you wish to receive. The way you speak, how you carry yourself, the kindness you extend to others. All of these things, including how you treat your children, have a profound influence on the way they act and, ultimately, how they treat you. When you lead by example, you're not just telling others how to behave, you're showing them without ever needing to say a word. Your actions speak volumes, and the ripple effect of your behavior can extend far beyond what you might even realize. You set a standard not just for your family but for everyone around you. Take the story of Mr. Lorenzo, a retired factory worker and a grandfather of 5, as a heart-wrenching yet beautiful example. As he grew older, Mr. Lorenzo began to notice a painful truth. His adult children started visiting him less and less. And when they did come by, it was like they were physically there but emotionally absent, heads buried in their phones, eyes glazed over, minds elsewhere, and their visits were always short. It hurt him deeply, more than he could ever truly put into words. And as any loving parent or grandparent might feel, anger and bitterness were quick to rise to the surface. But instead of allowing those negative emotions to take hold and shape his response, Mr. Lorenzo made a conscious choice. He chose kindness. He chose to be patient. He chose love, even when it seemed like it wasn't being reciprocated. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Every single time his children came over, he greeted them with the warmest of smiles and the most heartfelt welcome. "It's so good to see you," he'd say, a phrase so simple, yet it conveyed a depth of love and acceptance that many would take for granted. Even when they failed to visit as often as they should or were distracted during their time together, he never criticized or made them feel guilty. Instead, he focused on them. He asked about their lives, showed genuine interest in their stories, and listened intently, offering wise and thoughtful advice when they needed it most. He never let their neglect affect his love for them. One year, when his children forgot his birthday, an oversight that, for any parent, could feel like a crushing blow to the heart, he didn't let resentment take root. Instead, he simply sent them a message saying, "I hope you're all doing well. I miss you." That was it. No blame, no anger, just love. Slowly but surely, something began to shift. His children, seeing his unwavering patience and his refusal to let their behavior define his love for them, started to change. They began visiting more often, making time for calls, and even bringing their children to spend precious moments with their father and grandfather. The moral of Mr. Lorenzo's story is simple but powerful. Respect is contagious. It's like a seed that you plant in the hearts of others through your actions, and while it may take time to grow, in the end, it flourishes. The respect you show to others, especially your children, has the power to transform not only how they see you but also how they see themselves and how they relate to the world. Instead of demanding respect, become a living example of it. Treat your children with the dignity and kindness you want to receive, and in time, they will come to recognize the beauty in doing the same for you. It's so easy to give in to frustration when things aren't going the way we want, to demand things from those we love. But as Mr. Lorenzo so beautifully shows us, The most profound changes happen not through force or bitterness, but through patience, love, and the simple act of leading by example. You have the power to shape your relationships, and that power comes not from what you say but from how you live. Lead with kindness, lead with respect, and the world will follow suit. Insight number 6. Stay financially independent. As we grow older, one of the most profound ways to maintain respect and dignity in our relationships with our children is to stay financially independent. It might seem like a comforting thought to rely on our children for support as we age, to think that they will be there to take care of us. But here's the truth. Placing that heavy burden on them can unintentionally breed resentment, strain relationships, and create tension. Financial dependence can easily be mistaken for weakness or an inability to cope. But maintaining our independence, managing our finances, commands a level of respect that is invaluable. It's natural to want to believe our children will always take care of us when we need them. But the reality is, they have their own lives to live, their challenges to face. And that's okay. True respect comes from the example we set, not by demanding care or help, but by demonstrating our ability to thrive, even in later years. When your children see that you're capable of managing your affairs, they'll start to view you as strong, resourceful, and self-sufficient. Someone to admire and look up to rather than someone to care for. There is something deeply empowering about knowing you're standing on your own 2 feet without constantly needing to ask for assistance. Take the inspiring story of Mr. and Mrs. Carter, a retired couple in their 70s. After retirement, they chose not to follow the easy route of relying on their children, but instead made a conscious decision to downsize their home, simplify their lives, and live within their means. They focused on what truly mattered, not living in excess but being content with what they had, ensuring their savings would comfortably carry them through their golden years. Every dollar was carefully managed, and every expense was thoughtfully planned. Despite having a fixed income, they lived independently, never needing to ask their children for money, making them feel like they had to support them financially. At first, their children didn't fully understand the effort it took for their parents to maintain such financial independence. But with time, they began to notice something extraordinary. Their parents never once complained about money, never showed signs of financial worry, and always seemed in control of their situation. They didn't live in luxury, but they lived with peace of mind. It wasn't long before their children started to come to them for advice. "How did you manage to make your retirement savings last so long?" their son would ask. "What's the secret to budgeting in retirement?" their daughter would wonder. And with that, a new level of respect began to flourish. One that wasn't built on expectations, demands, or guilt, but on the solid foundation of admiration for their parents' self-sufficiency. The lesson here is incredibly powerful. Financial independence isn't just about managing money. It's about preserving your dignity, your autonomy, and your self-worth. It's about sending the message that you value yourself enough to not become a burden on your loved ones. This doesn't mean refusing help when it's genuinely needed, but it does mean making every effort to handle your affairs as much as possible. It means taking charge of your life and showing your children that you can stand tall and face the world on your terms. When they see this, they will respect you more deeply. They will be more than willing to offer their love, their support, and their care, without the weight of obligation or resentment hanging over them. You'll never regret choosing to stay financially independent. It's the ultimate gift you can give yourself and your family. Insight number 7. Forgive, but don't forget your worth. When our children hurt us, when they choose to ignore us or disrespect us, the pain runs deep. It cuts through our hearts, leaving us feeling unseen, unimportant, and sometimes even forgotten. In moments like these, the idea of forgiveness can feel almost impossible. How do you forgive someone who has hurt you so deeply? How do you let go of the anger, the disappointment, the sense of betrayal? But here's the truth that took me years to learn. Forgiveness is not just a gift you give to others. It's a powerful gift you give to yourself. Carrying resentment is like carrying a heavy, suffocating weight. It pulls you down, clouds your mind, and steals your peace. Holding on to anger may feel righteous at first, but in the long run, it only poisons your soul. And here's where it gets interesting. When you forgive, you are not letting the other person off the hook. No, forgiveness is for you. It's a chance for you to release the chains of bitterness that keep you trapped in the past, allowing you to finally breathe again and find peace in your heart. But forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's not about excusing disrespect or pretending that everything is okay when it's not. It's about recognizing that their actions do not define their worth. You have an intrinsic value, regardless of how others treat you. You are worthy of love, of respect, of kindness, and no amount of neglect or hurtful behavior can take that away. Let me share the story of Mrs. Evelyn, a retired artist and loving mother of two. Evelyn's heart had been broken over the years as her daughter, Claire, drifted further and further away. Her calls became less frequent, her visits even rarer. Evelyn felt the sting of abandonment with every passing day, wondering where she went wrong. For so long, she carried the weight of that pain, unsure of her place in her daughter's life, questioning her value. It's something I know many of us have experienced. The devastating feeling that the people we've loved most, the people we've given so much of ourselves to, no longer need us. Then, one day, something inside Evelyn shifted. She realized she couldn't carry this hurt forever. It was only dragging her down. She decided to forgive Claire, not for Claire's sake, but for her healing. With a trembling hand, she wrote a heartfelt letter that read, "I forgive you for the distance between us, and I will always love you." It was a simple message, but the act of writing those words was a profound turning point. Yet, even as she forgave, Evelyn made a quick yet monumental decision. She was going to reclaim her dignity. She was not going to let her daughter's actions diminish her sense of self-worth. So, instead of sitting idly by, waiting for Claire's call that might never come, Evelyn picked up her paintbrushes again. She returned to the one thing that had always brought her peace, her art. She reconnected with her passion, something she hadn't done in years. Evelyn joined a local art group, began displaying her work at community events, and found herself immersed in the beauty of creation once again. She wasn't waiting for anyone's approval or validation. She was living for herself. Months later, Claire came to visit unexpectedly. When she saw her mother's work, when she saw how fulfilled and content Evelyn had become, her heart shifted. "Mom, you've been painting again. Why didn't you tell me?" Claire asked, her voice thick with emotion. Evelyn simply smiled, a quiet strength radiating from her. "I've been focusing on what brings me joy," she said. That was the moment everything changed. Claire began visiting more often, not out of guilt but out of admiration for the woman her mother had become. Evelyn's strength, her resilience, and her refusal to shrink herself in the face of rejection became the spark that rekindled their relationship. Here's the message I want you to take away. Forgiveness is a beautiful gift you give yourself, but never, ever let it make you forget your worth. You are deserving of respect. You are deserving of love. You are deserving of happiness. No one has the power to take that away from you, not even your children. So, forgive. Let go of the hurt and resentment that binds you to the past. But always, always remember who you are. Find your joy, reclaim your passions, and live with the dignity you deserve. Your value is not based on how others treat you. It's a reflection of who you are at your core. Never forget that. Insight number 8. Build a new circle of companionship. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Loneliness can be one of the most excruciating, soul-crushing emotions we face, especially when it comes from the sting of feeling ignored or disrespected by the very people we've given so much to, our children. It's deeply heartbreaking when those we've nurtured and cared for throughout their lives turn their backs, whether out of busyness or emotional distance. When you find yourself feeling abandoned, the temptation to turn to your children for emotional support can be overwhelming. You desperately hope they'll fill the aching void inside you, that they will be the ones to offer the warmth and connection that you crave. But when that hope is unmet, it leads to frustration, hurt, and a kind of emotional suffocation that only breeds resentment. The emotional dependency you once sought for comfort now feels like a burden on both you and them. And that's where the danger lies. Too much reliance on them for emotional fulfillment only deepens the wound. That's why it's crucial to build a new circle of companionship. It may not be easy, and it may take time, but the payoff is immeasurable. Cultivating meaningful relationships outside of the family circle, whether with friends, neighbors, or even strangers who become friends, can begin to heal that painful sense of abandonment. A new circle doesn't just replace the one you had with your children. It gives you a new sense of purpose, a community where you can laugh, share, and feel seen again. It is a lifeline that cuts through the isolation that can feel suffocating and overwhelming. I think of Mr. Harold, an 80-something-year-old man who had weathered many storms in life only to find that his children, busy with their own lives, had gradually pulled away from him. For years, he had leaned on them for emotional support, hoping their visits would fill his home with joy and love. But slowly, those visits became shorter, and the frequency dropped until they were mere echoes of what they once were. He found himself alone for most of his days, a sense of abandonment creeping in like a shadow. It was as if his entire world had become a silent, empty house, and the pain of it seemed unbearable at times. Then, one day, after what felt like an eternity of loneliness, Harold made a brave choice. He decided to join a local seniors club, unsure of what to expect but somehow filled with a glimmer of hope. It wasn't just the idea of meeting new people. It was the spark of possibility, the idea that there could be a future beyond the isolation he had come to know. And to his surprise, that spark ignited into something beautiful. He met new friends, people who became his new companions in life. There were weekly coffee gatherings at the clubhouse, lively book clubs, and even a walking group that met in the park. Little by little, Harold's social calendar began to fill up, and with each passing day, he felt less and less alone. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. He started laughing again, sharing his life and stories with others who truly listened. He even formed a tight-knit group of friends who went on day trips together, exploring places that had once felt out of reach. No longer did he sit in the silence of his home, waiting for his children to visit. Harold still loved his children deeply, and their visits still meant the world to him, but the emptiness that once accompanied their absence was now filled with the joy of his new friendships. The lesson here, my friends, is profound. Loneliness is not just an emotional pain. It can quickly spiral into emotional dependence that damages not only your sense of self-worth but also your relationship with those you love. But when you choose to build a vibrant social life, you free yourself from that painful expectation that your children alone can fulfill all your emotional needs. By opening yourself to new friendships, you create a foundation of support and joy that doesn't rely solely on your children's availability or willingness. You enrich your life with new experiences, laughter, and connection. As a result, you begin to heal emotionally, reducing feelings of resentment and opening the door to healthier, more harmonious relationships with your children. When you cultivate a life of companionship outside the family, your entire emotional landscape changes for the better. It's about finding peace within yourself and discovering that, even in your later years, the world can still offer you new moments of joy, connection, and belonging. As we wrap up today's discussion, I hope you've gained valuable insights into the importance of building new relationships and creating a fulfilling social life. Loneliness can be one of the hardest struggles to face, but it's never too late to cultivate new connections and rediscover joy. Whether it's through a local group, a new friend, or even a simple outing, every step you take towards building your circle of companionship is a step towards a more vibrant, fulfilling life. So, what have you learned from this video so far? Take a moment to reflect and think about one thing that stood out to you. What will you practice in your own life? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please leave your comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.